Give a damn about a hater when I feel like it. Not today, not today, not today, not tomorrow. Get out my way, please, I'm trying to get paid. Not today, not today.
Welcome into Bully the Board. We have started our board meeting. Week 1 is in the books, and man, was it exciting. There was drama everywhere. Steve, welcome back to the NFL season. How you feeling?
Oh, feels so good to be back. Loved every second of it, highs, lows, but man, oh man, I'm glad football's back on. How about you?
Oh man, yeah. It like the pain already. We got bad beated. Week 1. Let's just check the box. Feeling good. Yeah, I don't know. It feels good and bad all at the same time. It's a fickle love, but man, to have a full weekend of college on Saturday and NFL on Sunday, I don't know. I felt whole again. There's no other way to say it at all. Before we get into the matchup maps and talk about what happened in week 1 and look ahead to week 2 and look at what the models got, make sure you are liking, subscribing, guys. It helps us tremendously. And any way you show support, we are super grateful. So thank you. All right, Steve. We have week 1. It's in the books. We got a ton to discuss, a ton to kind of dissect. But let's start with one of our Super Bowl darlings, the Miami Dolphins. Whoa. Were they slanging the ball? Tuanon was in effect. How are you feeling? Are you loving this bet? Are you hating this bet? I mean, hard to not like that offense.
No. I mean, first of all, what a game, right? I mean, that game had everything you wanted to it. It was action-packed, back and forth, down to the wire. Dolphins eke out that 2-point win. Just absolute shootout. But this is who we thought Tua was going to be when he was healthy. This is the Dolphins team who we thought that's who they were going to be when they were healthy, and they did not disappoint whatsoever. And I'll take this step forward. As we talked about, we have the Dolphins as one of our Super Bowl picks going into this season. I'm loving this bet even more, not just because the Dolphins are 1-0, but you look at that division. You have the Jets. We'll talk about. Aaron Rodgers went down on the 4th play of the game. You have questions coming out of Buffalo as to what's going on with that team. And then the Patriots, who put up a pretty valiant fight against the Eagles. You give me all 4 of those teams. I'm taking the Dolphins coming out the East, and that sets the door wide open for them to make a deep Super Bowl run. So I'm loving this pick. I'm loving the Dolphins, and I can't be happier.
Yeah, the AFC week 1 was quite interesting, but specifically in that division, I don't think things couldn't have gone better for us. New England losing, and then if you had to take a team you would want to win and lose between the Buffalo Jets game, because it's in division, that's the best scenario for us because the Jets have longer odds, right? So right now, that division's obviously all of a sudden flipped on its head, where you have Miami and New York with at the 1 and tied for the first spot. Already off to a good start for Miami plus 330 to win that division. This was a good win for Tua. I gotta imagine this has got to shake something off your back when everybody just tells you all offseason you're the glass man. All you've done is won your whole career. When you're good, you are one of the best quarterbacks in the league. And what do you know? He just goes out and slings the ball all day and goes and wins, on a crazy, not last second drive, but, for all intent and purpose, basically that, right? I mean, this thing was scripted. Now, on the flip side of that, there kind of questions already for the Chargers. Like, oh, no, here we go again. There was some injuries in that game. Kellen Moore ain't the answer, blah, blah, blah. But I agree. Focusing on Miami, that's a great win. Happy to see it. Still questions on the D.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. 466, 3 tutties, and a clutch drive from Tua. Like, what? Tell me that's not a bad man. Tell me that's not a bad man.
Roll Tide. I mean, quite frankly, of the 3 Alabama quarterbacks, we were in Tuscaloosa. He by far he had the best weekend, no doubt about it. He had the best Sunday. What have we always said? When Tua is healthy, he's one of the best quarterbacks. You've seen our quarterback volatility maps over and over and over again. If you haven't go over to the website, check it out. Tua is continuously one of the most efficient quarterbacks but he struggles with his volatility and, concussions and things like this. So I'm rooting for Tua. I mean, it was good to see. Still a little bit of questions on their defense. Look at their rush defense. I mean, by far and away the worst in the league. Austin Eckler just torched them. Unfortunately, got injured in that game. Looks like he may miss week 2 here. But frankly, if you're looking for another data point that Miami was the right answer, where did they struggle in 2022? The pass. This was a stacked pass attack, and for the most part, they were, we'll call it, a little bit below average, but compared to where they were last year, head and shoulders better. So, now they got to figure out how to get the run game fixed, but, where their weakness was actually in the run and not the pass. So I think that's a good sign. Okay, second team I want to talk about, team. Browns and Bengals. Bengals go to Cleveland kind of just real abysmal, rainy day. Man, that was interesting. But I have to say the Browns look good. Kind of talk me off the ledge here.
Yeah, it's funny because this is the reverse sort of I don't call it a curse, but the reverse sort of ownership. Last year we talked about Joe Burrow coming into Arrowhead or Burrowhead, right? Like Joe Burrow owned Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. Now you flip the script here. Burrow's now 1-4 against the Browns here. So call to Sean Daddy. This game was just something where, it like you said, it was a rainy day. It was an ugly game. Both quarterbacks didn't really do much to impress. They didn't really light it up. And that, give credit to the defense where that's credit is due, give credit to the elements, whatever you want to say. But at the end of the day, the Browns looked like the more dominant team. And lo and behold, you give this team with their quarterback a whole offseason to prepare like you didn't have with Burrow and the Bengals. Looks like that kind of matters, right? So I'm really excited to see where it goes. Now, again, this was bad for us on week 1 because we were on the Bengals side, but we do have the Browns over 9.5 for the season win total. So a little bit of a bittersweet moment there. How did you feel about this one?
Yeah, I mean, two major takeaways. Browns' new defensive coordinator comes in. I think he's doing a goddamn good job. I mean, it looked like, what we'll look back, and I think a really impressive defensive outing for them because I think Bengals end up getting it together. But we have seen this in past years from the Bengals. They kind of, Joe Burrow specifically, start slow. And it's mostly because of lack of off-season, preseason training. He's been injured pretty much every single year. So that's something they'll need to fix. But I think they'll get it together. This is going to be an efficient offense at some point. Do they go to the Super Bowl and playoffs? All that, I don't know. We'll find that out down the road. So I think that's the biggest one. The other one we're kind of joking about. Does Joe Burrow have like a second family in Cleveland that he doesn't tell anybody about? Because you're right. When he goes there, whatever reason, and I can't like what, it's not like there's something crazy going on. It's Cleveland, Ohio. I don't know, something about it. Maybe it's nostalgia for him. He's an Ohio guy. I don't know. A lot of question marks, but yeah, I mean, nice to see our, the futures model. To not bury the lead here. Futures picks win 8-0 week 1, so you can't be a more happy camper there. And if you're going to lose one of your model predictions for that week, nice to lose to one where you have the over. And yeah, I think overall the last thing for me is I think the Browns are going to be probably pretty good this year. And why you went ahead and paid Deshaun $270 million guaranteed was this exact reason. He's pretty damn good. And if you combine that with a good defense, this team's going to be scary, and they're probably going to be, pretty difficult team in the AFC, which, add another difficult team in the AFC, right? That'll be interesting. Any last Browns stuff?
Nothing for the Browns, but I just want to give a heartfelt FU to T. Higgins. I lost my fantasy team, my fantasy matchup this week. 0.0 catches. That was absolute heartbreaker. Damn,
yeah, they couldn't do anything. It was. I don't think you've ever seen that from a Joe Burrow led offense. I mean, the post game interview with Chase was pretty good too. Like, I'm just pissed because I called them a bunch of elves and we just got our ass beat by a bunch of elves. I mean, I think that sums it up all day, right? That was just a really, really weird game for them. But I think obviously Cincinnati is going to have a potent offense. I think they'll get it together. They have too many weapons, too good of an overall team. to freak out just yet, but we'll have to track to see how that goes. All right, staying in the AFC, we had the Cinderella story of Aaron Rodgers in the offseason deciding he's coming back. He's going to New York. He's going to be a New York Jet. He's, he all offseason, there was Hard Knocks. It was looking like Aaron Rodgers was 20 years old again. He was so happy this team was clicking on all cylinders. And he even did play in the preseason. I think he played in the last, the third game. We get 4 games in on 9/11. Aaron Rodgers tears his Achilles. I mean, man, this one hurt. I think no matter how you feel, Aaron Rodgers on the football field is some of the best quality football you're going to see. Now, I know he's hurt you a lot, Steve, as a Bears fan, but did you even feel a little bit bad for him?
Yeah, listen, no one hates Aaron Rodgers more on the field than the Bears fan, right? But you hate to see someone to go like that. I mean, I wanted Aaron Rodgers to suffer this entire year, have a shitty season, and now I'm deprived of that. But all jokes aside, you don't want to see someone go out that kind of way. It does suck.
Yeah.
It's bad for football. It's bad for the Jets. Clearly bad for Aaron, and his camp. But it'll be pretty interesting to see how they bounce back from this. And has Zach Wilson learned a lot just under the mentorship of Aaron Rodgers to be a different quarterback this year than he was last year? Because that's my biggest question. We saw this team have a great defense last year, and Zach Wilson just could not be the leader they need him to be. He looked better. All reports saying that he's more confident and he had that pressure sort of lifted off of him. But what did he learn in the offseason to change his game to make this different than last year? Very excited to see.
Yeah, and to that point, there are some other deeper questions, correlated to the one you're asking, which is, you remember what also is different than last year. They brought in Hackett. Now the idea was to bring in Hackett for Aaron Rodgers, but nonetheless, new offensive coordinator. Does this actually help him? Does he, does it allow him to do things that he likes or does better than previous season? He also has new weapons. They add Lazard. So the things that, the reasons we liked Aaron Rodgers, I think do a little bit, in my opinion, that we should. I'm not saying we should crown Zach Wilson, but I do have a lot of questions here on okay, well, these were all looked as positives for Aaron Rodgers, and I understand they're 2 different quarterbacks, but now all of a sudden we're just saying none of those things are true. Oh yeah, it looks like that defense is going to be good again. One going up against a really talented Bills team and Bills offense. But, can he do even better than he did when he's thrown in thinking Aaron Rodgers is the starter with a week of preparation here, right? Him not even knowing he's going to be in that game, I think, he did pretty damn good, in my opinion, because that's got to be a hell of a moment to be thrusted in there. And we'll talk about it a little bit later with the picks, but the market is basically taking this from a 3 and putting it at a 9.5. So, I mean, that's a pretty damn good, big move. We'll talk about that in a little bit on if we think that's too big of a move or not. Okay, one I selfishly want to talk about is Vegas. Vegas. All I took all off season. Jimmy G is basically dead. You might as well bury him in the backyard. I was not surprised at all that Vegas was pretty efficient. They were able to throw the ball. Jimmy G looked pretty good, pretty poised. Only 1 interception, and it was in the red zone. So obviously, this could have been even it was a close game, no doubt. But this could have been a kind of quote unquote blowout for a 10-point win if they score there. And the other side of this is I do think that even though Broncos right now are in quadrant of good offense, bad defense, I think as we shape out the season, we're going to look back and say, damn, Vegas is a good offense, and it makes Denver look like a bad defense at this point because they gave up so much to Vegas. But I'm not surprised by this. Jimmy G has been an efficient quarterback wherever he's been. He has a number of weapons. Oh yeah, they're just getting started. So I'm not surprised by this at all. What are your thoughts on Vegas?
No, I think that's spot on. What we really saw last year was we had this competition all offseason. Derek Carr for Jimmy G, just like you mentioned. And we looked at the volatility map. You can see on our website. Jimmy G is just a more consistent version of Derek Carr, right? And so you talked about why did Vegas underperform last year and why they lost so many games. Well, it's really hard to win when you're just giving up points or giving the ball to the other team. And that's part of the volatility that comes with Derek Carr that you don't see quite as much as, with Jimmy G. And so I'm not shocked at all. One, I'm down on Denver, but there's one thing Denver is going to be good at. It's going to be their defense. So I completely agree with you. This is more about Vegas being a good offense against a really good defense, more so than anything else. So I want to make sure we give the Raiders their credit. But 6.5 wins, I think, was their win total. I think that was just outright disrespectful. And I think we're going to see a lot of heads turn as the weeks go on.
Yeah. And then, I don't want to. I think obviously week 1, it's overreaction. So let's overreact a little bit. Are the Bills going to be good? Right? Are the Bills? I mean, this opened at a 10.5 spread, the look ahead line, and then it bumped down to about 8.5. Now it's about 9.5. Like, is really from a power ratings standpoint, the Bills, from what they put on the field against the Jets, are 9.5, 10 points better than Vegas. I'm surprised by that, but we'll see. We'll see what ends up happening. Okay, last team, Dallas. All this off season, it's always Dallas's year. And the Super Bowl, they're always going to win it. Dallas fans forever, they've been saying this. DVOA, we were high on them going in. Projected DVOA was high on them. Them in San Francisco. They come out. They put a ass whooping on New York Giants. And man, oh man, their defense would not stop. And this team, at least from a defensive standpoint, looks elite. What are you taking away from Dallas? I mean, are you ready to crown them?
Oh man, what's funny? So I saw a meme on there, and it's kind of like a diagram. It's like here's where we are in the season. It's the circle of life where Dallas comes out, they beat up on trash teams. They look really dominant. They choke in the playoffs, and and then it rinse and repeat, right? But no, Dallas. We've said it all off season. Their defense was going to be their calling card, and they did what they were supposed to do, and then some. I mean, I believe it was 2 defensive touchdowns they had in that game. They just were all over. Once they were able to pin their ears back against Jones, it was a wrap, But to me, the bigger takeaway to your point, though, is you look how efficient they were on offense. What stands out to me, and my biggest thing about the Cowboys has been, can Dak Prescott take them to the promised land? And this is the year he has to prove that. And he has been one of the most volatile quarterbacks we've seen over the last couple of years, where he will put up numbers, no doubt. But he's also going to cost you games by turning the ball over. If you look at the stat line, 13 for 24, 143 yards. Dak got out of the Cowboys' way. You let Tony Pollard go nuts. He let the defense go nuts. And look at how dominant of a team they are. So as long as Dak Prescott doesn't bring this team down by giving the ball away, this is a team to be feared.
Yeah, and you can see here on the efficiency landscape from an offense standpoint, yeah, they were well balanced, but yeah, he kind of got out of the way there. And remember, this is a new offensive coordinator coming in, and the big Mike McCarthy is now calling the plays again. So there's some changes there, and maybe it's them taking the reins back and saying, hey, we're going to help you, help yourself, kind of thing. I don't know. Obviously, we're not ready to crown them yet. It's a long season. Anything can happen. Dak's got hurt in the past, but you can see, their defense, ironically, though, is just as efficient as the Browns. To kind of put in perspective of how dominant the Browns were on a per-play basis, both these teams dominated both their opponents. I don't know. The one question, I know we wanted to talk about Dallas, and obviously competitive win, big blowout. You kind of got to throw this game away, I think, if you're New York Giants. Any fears or any questions there where you go, oh, we just paid our quarterback. We had this controversy with Saquon wanting to get paid. You come out, you throw up a goose egg, or do you just move on and you just move to week 2?
Yeah, I mean, the real answer, you interview anybody that puts on that uniform, the answer is you move on to week 2, right? If you lose by 1 or by 40, it still counts as one loss in the loss column, right? With that being said, though, yeah, you're damn right you're concerned, right? This raises a lot of questions as why did you value Daniel Jones so high? And then that was kind of the talk of all the offseason, and him getting this bag, and good for him. Not mad at it, but clearly you're going to have to reevaluate some things. Now, can they get some things together and figure it out? Sure. But I am definitely concerned as I'm overreacting to one game. I'm absolutely concerned about my offense in New York.
Yeah, 100%. All right. Well, that's kind of all the teams we're going to talk about. Of course, let us know in the comments if you think that any of the other teams that we didn't talk about are winning the Super Bowl or taking on the worst team. And like always, if you're interested in grabbing the matchup maps, you can go to bullytheboard.com and find them. They are all up there for free, even the QB volatility graph, which we'll talk about next week. Yeah.
Can I make one last thing before we move on? Going back to the whole Jets thing. So again, I never want to root for someone getting injured, with Aaron Rodgers thing. But I will say, as a Bears fan, what does make me happy is I didn't realize this. There was a clause in that package where the Packers were going to get a first-round pick from the Jets if Aaron Rodgers played at least 65% of the snaps this season. Clearly, he's not going to make that list, so now it's a second-rounder instead of a first-rounder, which means the Packers are going to suck a little more next year. So
there you go.
I'm happy about that.
Cosmic karma. And what if Aaron Rodgers comes back, he goes to rehab, comes back in 2024 and just is elite, then they didn't even get paid for it. That's a good that's a good angle. That's true hatred. I love it. Okay. Moving on. We're talking week 2 bets model. It's that time. I mean, these things move fast. You got to take these numbers. We'll talk a little bit about it today. But one of the things that we're really committed to and why we went and built out our own database and everything is so that we can run these numbers at basically Sunday night, Monday morning, because the lines move very fast at opening. And some of these numbers are so crucial to get the true value you need. They move like that. So in the coming weeks, if you're interested, make sure you're followed on our website, go sign up, or social media, but you're going to get the fastest picks if you go to the website. But this is, the idea. If you're wanting to get, if you want to see CLV, you got to bet opening lines, and you got to bet them aggressively, and you got to run your numbers and have everything ready to go. Okay, so we got a full slate on games. There's 5 games I believe the model likes, and I don't know, Steve. I mean, I have to say, in some of my brain is I'm like, ooh, these are kind of gross. The other part of my brain, however, we talked about this in previous season. I'm like, I love it. I love it. It makes me feel like I'm seeing something the market's not. And, you back test your model, you run your model. So these aren't just, putting your finger up, right? You can go back and understand, okay, it's giving me this number because of this reason, right? One I want to talk about right off the bat, that Rams, I think going to San Francisco, or it might be San Francisco going to the Rams. But either way, this opened at 7. It's already moved up to 8. There was an 8.5 for a little bit. It got bet. It's sitting at 8. There's a couple 7.5s. The model loves this. It's saying, Rams, will lose, but this is more like a field goal game. Not ready to crown Purdy yet. Now, one thing before I get your thoughts, Steve, the one thing I want to talk about with this game specifically is, you have to do something with rookie quarterbacks or quarterbacks with few starts. You really don't want to just say, okay, we know all people about all things with only a few a few games. So one thing our model does is we treat all quarterbacks with 6 or less starts, home and away. So you have to have basically 6 at home and 6 away. You have to have that before you got to get bumped up to us saying, okay, your statistics, we're going to start using your statistics versus just the aggregate of all people with 6 or less starts. Purdy is in that category with 6 or less starts. And so this is treating Purdy like basically a rookie and basically saying, hey, we don't know. Now, you could very much disagree with that, and I would love to hear your thoughts on if you do agree with that or disagree with that. But that's, to be honest, what's kind of driving this, right? This is truly Matt Stafford, a very, very efficient quarterback, and in the model's mind, going up against an unproven rookie.
Yeah, and you have to do that to some degree, right? We play with this back and forth, and you don't want to give credit overly where it's not due, right? And so you look at Brock Purdy and all the success he had, but it's a very small sample size, right? And so you don't want to overreact as much as you don't want to underreact. So you got to do something. And this is the compromise in the middle. Now, with that being said, this game scares the hell out of me. Just strictly on the value there. Yeah, right. And what more so scares me, same thing that scared me about the Rams in general going into the season was, who are they putting on the field? Right. Obviously, Stafford is proven who he is, right? Cooper Kupp's now, their two leading receivers was Puka Nacua and Tutu Atwell. Which means like who did but all jokes aside, you look at the matchup map here and you see how efficient they were going up against Seattle.
Rush and pass.
Right.
You could see where they're at. They're in the top 4 performances on offense. They were the most efficient on rush and pass, like combined.
Yeah, and to me, this again, we say it over and over again. To me, it's, can you believe what you're seeing? Is this who LA is going to be? Possibly. Is this a week 1 overreaction against maybe a Seattle defense who we all really hyped up that maybe needs to get some things figured out before we crown them, the Legion of Boom 2.0? I don't know yet, but you got to take the data for what the data are, and it's showing LA as a very efficient team that really should be able to give San Fran some problems.
Yeah, and one thing to ease your mind here, or at least ease my mind here, remember that, so right, you have the option to, how are you assessing in-season EPA? Well, for this and what our model does, we're using a 12-game rolling average, right? So that one game overreaction that happened, that's being averaged out by their last 11 games before this, right? So this is saying, yeah, they did really well last game, but this is also saying, what have they done on a per play basis in 11 games trailing this? So this isn't saying, yes, can it overreact and can a game like that sway that average? No doubt about it. But it isn't just blindly taking one game's worth of data and saying, hey, this is exactly who they are. No, that's probably not right either, right? This one feels gross, but this is the NFL, and Purdy and San Francisco fans have been spoiled aplenty. They go and they beat the shit out of bad teams. They win by 21. But look, that is not normal in the NFL at all. NFL highest probability outcome is 3 points, right? Then next is 7. So for you to be able to get, I bet I was able to get an 8.5. We're calling this a 2-possession game. That is a quote unquote rarer outcome in the NFL. Now, you're always going to hear us talk about, okay, but that's not that, you don't want to look at it that angle. You want to look at the true matchups here. And it's saying that, quite frankly, the Rams are not a team that is 8.5 points, worse. And I kind of agree with that. This early in the season, are 49ers just going to kill everybody by that many points? And I was trying to think about this earlier today, and I hope you know the answer. Is it Sean McVay that has Shanahan's number, or is it Shanahan that has Sean McVay's number? But one of these guys, they always own the other. And I think it's McVay having Shanahan's number, is it not?
That's a great thing.
I was trying to go back, but I couldn't remember who it was, and I didn't have a chance to look it up.
McVay is 3-7 against Shanahan.
Okay, never. So Shanahan's got his number.
Yeah.
So that makes matters worse. The other thing, that sucks about this matchup, love Matthew Stafford is starting, but obviously you'd like to have Cooper Kupp. You have no Cooper Kupp. Still on IR. Mm-hmm. Make matters even worse, Right Angle Sports gave out 7 as a bet for their opening line service, which is what moved it to 8. Look, ultimately, 8.5, too many points, I think. I'm willing to grab the 8.5, where our model is really showing from a quarterback standpoint, the quarterback, matchup, it leans towards Stafford. And I'll let Purdy beat me until we kind of learn a little bit more about him. And that'll happen in the next couple of weeks. He did start a fair number of games in 2022. And once the model knows that and says, okay, yeah, we trust now, we'll use his numbers. Okay. Moving on. The highest value on the board, although I wasn't able to get it, I doubt you were, was the Raiders opening at 10.5. This was the look-ahead line. Man, I was literally about to press the button and the game kicked off, and once the Bills game went live, it closed all of the bets. So I wasn't able to get the 10.5. I was able to get a 9, which is now sitting at 9.5. So if you're seeing this today, 9.5 still available, more than likely. This is still leaning in the direction of Buffalo pretty heavily. I'm not sure why. Why are the Raiders getting so much disrespect? Any thoughts there?
I get it. It's if you look at this as a brand name game, right? The Bills and the Raiders, these are two teams who people just typically think of as opposite ends of the spectrum, especially when you look back to last year and how much Vegas really underperformed. I totally get it. With that being said, this line makes no sense whatsoever to me if we're actually watching who the Bills are and who the Raiders are. I mean, you look at that Jets game, one, that is just a catastrophic loss. I mean, you go through, you game plan for Aaron Rodgers, I get it, but Rodgers goes down. You effectively played the entire game, right? You effectively played the entire game without Rodgers at quarterback, and you still lost to the Zach Wilson Jets. I want to give credit's due on the defensive end, but what really shocked me, or not even shocked, I guess what really sort of opened my eyes here as to what are the glaring weaknesses that the Bills are going to have a problem with all year long is that rush defense, right? And you look here at the EPA rush, right? We talked about how bad Miami was. Well, guess who's second? Bills. Second worst EPA rush defense on the per play average is the Bills. And if you look over to the Raiders and their EPA offense, lo and behold, the Raiders here, while they're really good on the offense, they're not terrible on the defense. But I don't think the Jets are necessarily that high on the rush offense. It's just exploiting what that weakness is going to be for Buffalo. So if I'm the Raiders, I'm looking at this. You better believe I am licking my chops and making a game plan for Josh Jacobs. And I fully expect them to rise above that halfway mark after this week. And I love the 9.5 here.
Yeah, Jimmy G looked really good. I mean, if Zach Wilson could come out and have a little bit of success, I don't understand how, the Bills are going to, keep up. Not keep up. Do the Bills lose this game? No, I think they win. But, this is just – I mean, look, I really refrain people this line makes no sense. It's not a trap. It's not a trap. I can tell you exactly where this number comes from. If you use a power rating, which is what numbers are based off of, spreads are set, right? They're from a power rating. And part of a power rating this early in the season is heavily weighting a season's past performance. One of the things that makes our model powerful is we use those numbers, all those statistics, we put in quarterback. Quarterback is a huge predictor. And not only quarterback statistics, but just who the quarterback is. And Jimmy G has been so efficient over his career. They're saying, no, like Jimmy G is a good damn quarterback, and he's probably going to get you some points. And we come back to the thing we just talked about, 2 possessions. Now, it's not an always never thing. But again, just looking at it from an angle, the probability of a team to win by multiple possessions in the NFL, that team has to be a standard deviation minimum above, talent-wise, above another team for you to expect above standard deviation outcome. And sometimes that warranted, like last week when we bet on the Ravens against Houston, where that team is a standard deviation better. But most of the time, that's not the case. So I like this bet, even though it may lose. Who knows? I don't feel bad about it. This one feels pretty good. Okay. Well,
yeah, I will say real quick, though.
Yeah, go. Yeah.
One thing about this, too, I want to add, looking back at that Bills-Jets game was, again, we talk about Zach Wilson and quarterbacks matter, right? But remember, just like you mentioned earlier, this team had a game plan around Aaron Rodgers being the starter. And so when Wilson came in, you saw a very vanilla playbook when it came to the pass offense, which if you're any defense, if you're not worried about the quarterback eating you deeper with his arm, what do? You stack the box and you go against the run because that's what you're afraid of here. You make them one-dimensional. You dare that quarterback to beat you. The Bills did that, and the Jets still ran the ball down their throat. So if you have, to your point, a Jimmy G who can beat you, who is a very efficient quarterback, who can pass the ball, well, now all of a sudden you have to play them honest. So this whole thing just screams weakness exploitation here, and I love the Raiders in this matchup for that very reason, because if one team can do it, you better believe the NFL is a copycat league, and they're going to try to exploit you to again and again until you prove you can stop it.
And Josh Jacobs is an efficient running back, right?
Yes.
And he can also catch the pass out of the backfield. So, look, again, do we think that Raiders win this game? I think there's a probability, but yeah, what I think this game ends up is more of a shootout, right? Where if Jets' defense is really good, we're not expecting Raiders to have a really great defense, but they are going to have a really efficient offense. So that makes probably the Bills' offense a little bit more efficient and able to kind of do their thing. But this is going to be probably a tit-for-tat thing. It's going to be difficult to cover a 2-possession spread. So, give me the 9 all day. I'll take it. I would have loved 10.5. But That's why you bet opening lines, and we will be able to do that this weekend. So, okay, well, we talked a little bit about the Jets. We talked about the unfortunate injury to Aaron Rodgers. This originally opened at 3, actually, I think 2.5, moved to 3 pretty quickly, and then that was the look headline. And then the Aaron Rodgers injury happened, and after the power ratings were updated, this opened at 8.5. There's 9.5 sitting there all day. This has already been bet to the 8.5. We're a little bit against the market on this, but I'm a little bit okay with it, and I'll tell you why. I think, one, there's a little bit of an overreaction to who Zach Wilson is. I'm not saying he's a good quarterback, but we talked about this earlier. There was a number of things that we looked at as positives for this offense, and the minute it was then Aaron Rodgers, they were all good things. Now we're just ignoring new offensive coordinator that's, supposed to be very competent, new wide receivers that are, really good wide receivers. And, give him a week to what did they figure out in the offseason, to your point earlier? What did they learn about Zach Wilson in the offseason? They kept him for a reason. They could have thrown him to the Wolves. They said, we're gonna bring in Aaron Rodgers, and he's basically our future. So there's something there that tells them there's something that they like or that they like about him. And I think that, Hackett, they're going to say, okay, this is what we think you did well, and we're going to create a game plan around it. And, by the way, does the team know? Do they know what those things are yet? Because we haven't seen it. We haven't seen any games. So I just think that this is probably an overreaction.
Yeah, I agree. And really, I gotta go back to the point. We didn't see who Zach Wilson really can be, right? We saw a oh shit moment. We got to throw Zach Wilson in the game, and the game we have not game planned around him for, right? I mean, again, like you mentioned, Hackett's a new OC here. He spent that time dedicating that offense and building around Aaron Rodgers, and all of a sudden you got to figure out, okay, well, what works best for Wilson? What's Wilson going to like in the middle of a game? That's very hard to do. Then you see a dynamically different offense hit the field next week against the Cowboys, and I agree. I get it. Aaron Rodgers is going to go down as a legend, right? No doubt about it. First ballot Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
He has a very positive and significant impact on the game. I get the line moving up the way it did. With that being said, to your point, I do think it's an overreaction because what you have on here on the other side of the ball is you have a really good Jets defense. Now, I know the EPA, they're kind of right there in the middle of the pack, but they are a consistently negative EPA per play team, which is what you want on defense, right? That's a hallmark of a good defense. So what you're going to see here is going to be more of a slugfest, not a shootout, but a slugfest is what I see happening here with two really powerful defenses making maybe a little more of a conservative offense, but a game that the Jets are very much capable of staying in and not losing much possessions. Yeah,
we talked about it before. Dak is volatile. He hasn't gone against a good defense yet. Already game 2, he's going to go up against a good defense. And does he make a mistake just like Josh Allen did? This team had a really good game plan to go up against that. I can't imagine they're not going to do similar things to try to confuse Dak or get to Zach to get to Dak. So I will see. I mean, the reality, if you look at this numbers, the model's putting it around 7. Okay, and that I think is very fair. They win by a touchdown, and it plus or minus that field goal. So we're either going to live and die by that field goal, and I'm okay with it, right? But I think that that's realistically where we're going to go here. But look, we know these are power ratings that are driving this, and I think based off the quarterback adjustment there, we're just not getting to that number, that 9.5. And with 7 being such a key number, that's where you're really seeing a lot of this value be derived, right? The true number is 6, and 7's just come up all day. Well, that's kind of the reality. Okay, well, we have 2 games left. Chiefs going in. Jags going to Chiefs, I think. They're going to Jags.
I think it's Chiefs going to Jags. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Chiefs going into Jacksonville. This opened at 2.5. Unfortunately, didn't get 2.5 at open. I did pay the juice. I don't advise you to do so. I was able to find a 145. You can see the number is there at 60. This basically gives me like a 1% edge expected value. But I think the 3 here is just so crucial. And that's why I opted out. Now, the reality is the buying the points thing is really all comes down to math. What's your implied probability of this happening? What's the implied probability of the odds you're betting? Like I just said, there's a little sliver of value, but I think in this specific game, the 3 is just going to come up so much. I'm not going to pay for the push. I want the win on my side rather than adding the push probability. When we saw this go live, we couldn't bet it. What was the first thing I said to you, Steve?
It's gonna push. Like this is insane. It's going to move up, and he got bought up, and look where we're at right now.
Yeah, before we ran the numbers, Chiefs 2.5 didn't make any sense. At minimum would have been a 3, and then that's what the model showed. So I'm not surprised by that. So I don't know. Tell me your thoughts here. I 3s all day. The 4 makes sense too, only because dynamics of scoring. But I just think this is a field goal. This is a field goal game. This is what Patrick Mahomes does.
Yeah, 100% agreed. This one, it doesn't. So let's take a step back, right? I'm not going to overreact to the Chiefs' loss, right? That was a very you had a lot of unfortunate circumstances here, right? I mean, you had a ball that was in Kadarius Toney's hands that goes for a pick 6, right? You take it off the board, completely changes the dynamic of the game, right? So I'm not going to overreact to that. I have my questions here about who the Chiefs are going to be this year without potentially Kelce for another game, and then without the enemy in that offense. Like, what's really going to be here with a Tony/Sky Moore led receiving core, et cetera, et cetera. With that being said, you still have a big bad motherfucker wearing number 15 in the backfield, right? And that is the person you have to watch out for. I think that I'm really high on the Jacks this year. I love what Lawrence is doing down there. But with that being said, yeah, I'm with you. This is going to be a field goal game. I don't know which way it's going to go, but I feel very confident in it being a field goal game. And this is where I 100% agree with you that buying that half a point to get it underneath and avoid the push is absolutely worth it.
Yeah, and I wouldn't want to long-term strategy here. Get the opening, right? But it just was out of our hands. Yeah, I mean a lot of things here. To break down analytic-wise, right? What is everybody? When we talk about people or tell people what we do, I feel like I get like a number of like top 5 questions, and it's always like people asking me about specific situations and what they're worth. Well, this is one of the answers. What is a bye week worth? It's worth 1 point. And remember, this is it. Depending on how you consider, this is a bye. This is Andy Reid with extended time, and he dominates these situations. The other interesting thing to take into account: when did that Kelce injury happen? 2 days before, and that was at practice. So let's call it actually one practice before they played. What was their game plan to replace one of their most efficient players? Well, I got to imagine they did their best, and they still should have won the game. So I have not only like the analytics here, but then the angle aspect of what points are worth and different situations are worth. This, to me, is a good situation for the Kansas City Chiefs to get right, minimize mistakes, come up with a game plan if Kelce is not going to be playing, or if he is going to be playing, what that looks like. I think the other thing, don't be fooled by the box score ending. That Jags-Colts game was a 3-point game. That was a 3-point box score that ended up showing a 10 points. This team didn't dominate the Colts. They got lucky on a couple scores. The reality of that is, that's sometimes why scores can be misleading. So look, I'm not low on Jacksonville by any means here, but I just think there's a lot of angles here. How this opened at 2.5, I'm not sure. Why it got bought up immediately is now, very apparent. It's sitting at 3.5. You do with it what you will. I don't want to tell you to buy points, but I think that 3 comes. If you run simulations on this, the 3 is going to come up so much. Okay. Speaking of 3s and 2.5s, Saints, I believe hosting. No, this is Saints.
They're going
to Carolina. Yeah, going to Carolina. Bryce Young missing a number of his his weapons week 1. I haven't looked at the report yet for week 2. He had an all right game. I didn't get to watch it too much. Looking at the stats, he's kind of who we thought we would see, which is a rookie quarterback. I don't think he's done too much here. Model is saying the true number here is 4. Obviously, when you cross that 3, that's where you gain a lot of the value. So I wasn't able to get the 2.5 here, but I did get the 3 minus 110. So I went ahead and lived with that. There was no way for me to buy the points at that time. So I'm okay with it, but you basically, just to go to a little bit nerdy here for all the analytics people that want to learn, a little bit more here. Looking at probabilities of outcome, what happens when you go from betting a 2.5 to a 3? Your actual win percentage goes down, but it's because you convert about 7% of your edge to a push, right? So that's why the 2.5 is such a key betting if you can get it, if you really truly think the edge is 4 or 3, because you convert your edge to a push. Now, the beautiful thing about a push is you don't lose, right? And for right now, we're okay with that. But that is why you see FanDuels with hooks. If they have edges, they don't want to push. They want to realize every edge that they have. So, all right, Steve, what are you thinking here? Did you see enough from Carr? Does this feel like a layup bet, or did you hate this?
Yeah, I think I've been betting long enough to never have a layup bet in the back of my mind because I've just been burned and hurt so many times. That trauma lives deep with me. But with that being said, yeah, I definitely love this matchup here. And to your point, we talked about the Saints coming in with the easiest of the schedule this year, and a big part of that is they play a lot of rookie quarterbacks, and one of the rookie quarterbacks is going to be Bryce Young this week. And not to mention, you go to the matchup map with the EPA defense breakdown, who's one of the best pass defenses in the league. It's going to be the Saints there. And so, you look at this is something where if I'm Bryce Young, I'm like, oh, God, here we go again, right? We talk about a Falcons defense that's supposed to be much improved on the defensive end. We saw Bryce struggle. I expect more of the same against the Saints. So that 2.5 is definitely a key number there. I want to get it before it crosses 3. But even if you get the 3 in the push, I still believe this is going to be I'm not going to say an easy cover, but definitely a game here where I see the Saints covering that 3 even fairly easily.
Yeah, and the one thing here too is right now they're actually film on what they tried to do. What did they try to do with him? What did he do well? What did he struggle with? And then you can create a game plan around. Okay, well, look, it's clear he literally, he loves to roll right. Okay, well, he ain't rolling right this game, right? So you can kind of tweak that a little more. Now, look, you still have to show up. You still have to pressure him. They're still going to have to improve. It doesn't mean just because he's a rookie, he just is going to go out there and suck. But there is now a little bit of film. Carr in that game, I didn't get to watch that game, so I didn't really get to see. That seemed to be a little bit of a weird game from my understanding. Saints could have covered there at the end for whatever reason. I think they threw a pick. It kind of was it was a weird kind of game. They end up getting the 1-point win. I believe the Titans kicked a field goal that was basically they covered because they kicked a field goal that really didn't make a lot of sense. But there you go. That's why you're betting. Yeah, I think 4 makes a lot of sense here. I wouldn't be surprised though, right? If it ends at 3. For now, I'll take the push probability because I didn't get the alpha at the 2.5. But I'm okay with it. I'm glad that it's kind of fading a rookie quarterback and favoring a little bit more of a veteran quarterback that we're seeing have some efficiency. And we're not surprised by that. Okay, cool. So these are the 5 picks for the model. So we have Raiders at +9, Rams at +9, Jets at +9. I stick that back. We have Raiders +9, Rams +8, Jets +9.5, Chiefs -2.5, and Saints -3. So that's what the model likes. That's what it's spitting out. We're rolling with those. Steve, give me 1 or 2 of your favorite bets for week 2 that the model isn't taking.
Oh, that the model is not taking.
Yeah.
Ooh. Yeah,
So
I
maybe
think
just
for
rolling with the
me.
model.
No, no, for sure. For me, I have 2 here. One is going to be the Eagles or the Vikings for that Thursday night game. We talked about the Vikings having a big step back and regressing, kind of being the Cinderella team last year and really punching up. And I think I expect to see more of the same. The Eagles definitely have a tougher schedule per se, but I think that's one here, and you see that the model and the line is pretty much even there. And actually, the Eagles moved down to 6.5, so potentially a little bit of more value on that.
Eagles are
Go ahead.
insanely injured at defense, like insanely. Nakobe Dean is on IR. They have a number of all defensive linemen, so I think that's what you're seeing. You're seeing a
Sure.
defensive injury angle there. But if you still feel good, at 6.5,
Yeah.
that's big.
Yeah. I do love that. And then the other one I do like here, and I'm not sure it's not on our list here. As a matter of fact, I'm not even seeing them. The Browns.
Pittsburgh. Yeah. That's what we were talking about, the kind of quarterback issue. So Pickett is in this transition right now between going from the rookie to his own name, and because of that, our databases got some issues. But we're working on it. But I ran some numbers. It put the number right around 2, which is what the line is at now.
Yeah, and then for me, that's more of I'm high on Cleveland more so than I'm down on Pittsburgh. And I know they're coming off a pretty bad game there. I don't want to overreact to that. But Cleveland looked so damn good. And again, getting that under 3 for a field goal game, sign me up for that.
Yeah, no, I like those. The one that I'm betting it not as aggressive as I do the model bets, but I am taking Ravens plus 3.5. Now, I know this is based off of injury angle. Unfortunately, the Ravens got pretty banged up in that Houston game. Obviously, they lost Dobbins.
J.K. Dobbins.
Yeah, they lost him with the Achilles. But they have a number of other injuries that happened specifically on defense. So really, that's what's filtering this number, and maybe it's a good bounce back, spot because of those injuries. But we've seen this year in and year out. These teams play each other so tough, so tough. I think we've talked about it. Beat a dead horse, I guess. The 3 here is just so crucial. We've seen this come down to a field goal in so many of the matchups. I mean, just even going back to last year, that's exactly how the Ravens were able to kind of win. Last second field goal. I wouldn't be surprised one way or the other who wins this if it comes down to a field goal. And so that 3 and a hook, I think, is a crucial thing. Now, I understand it's only getting there because of the injuries, but at this point in time, it's a little bit uncertain on what these injuries mean, right? Because their backups are presumably healthy, but obviously not a whole lot of playing experience. So I think for me, it's a bet I've made. I like it. I haven't bet it to the same degree, but I still think I think it's a good bet. Our model shows that there's even value at the 3. If you do the math here at 3.5, it goes up substantially. So that's what I'm rolling with, and I've locked that in. All right. Well, we have completed week 1. We're heading into week 2. Super excited to learn about these teams, kind of see how the teams develop. Hopefully, we can go another 8-0 on our futures pick, and we can see that ball and that train keep rolling along. Any last thoughts or things you want to talk about before we sign off?
No, I want to echo that. Really excited to see how this is going to turn out. Really excited to see what the model produces and how these games play out. But I'm just glad football is back. I might shed a tear.
I know. I might shed 2. I couldn't say it better myself, Steve. So we're super excited, guys. Excited for week 2. Remember, you can get all this stuff at bullytheboard.com. We have the matchup maps. We have all the efficiency landscape stuff over there. You can sign up and get the model output for both college and NFL. If you're interested, go over to bullytheboard.com. Please consider liking and subscribing. It helps us tremendously. And let us know in the comments who you guys are betting in week 2 and what your best bets are. All right, Steve, we're headed out of here, and I will talk to you all next week. Take care, guys.